So the Life After 90 study is a study of the oldest old. So all of the participants, when they were enrolled, were age 90 or older, and they are all long-term members of Kaiser Permanente. So they are in an integrated healthcare system, and we have collected cognitive data about every 6 months on these participants. When they started in the study, none of them had dementia. And so we're kind of following them to see cognitive trajectories in the oldest old. There's also some imaging because this is really a group that hasn't been studied, and it's growing rapidly. It's one of the largest or the fastest growing populations in the US. And they're also becoming increasingly diverse. And so this cohort study is of Asian, Black, Latino, mixed race, and white participants. So it's a very diverse group. What I was interested in was whether experiences of discrimination were associated with cognitive change over time in this oldest old group, because they're so old. A lot of them have experienced like Jim Crow laws and segregation. They have a wealth of experience. And so if we can really see that in this group, that's really, they're survivors. I mean, they're obviously all over age 90. So to some extent, they, are good agers. And we found that when we asked participants about their experiences of discrimination and then grouped them based on their experiences, we found 3 groups. One group was mostly white men who reported job discrimination. Then we had a second group that was mostly white women and participants of other races and ethnicities that reported no discrimination or very little discrimination. And then a third group that was it was all non-white participants who reported like pretty widespread discrimination across the different measures. And so we would think that the second class that reported little to no discrimination would have the highest cognition and maybe not be declining as quickly. But we actually found that the first class 1 with mostly white men, they had the highest cognition in 2 domains at baseline, followed by class 2 with no discrimination. And then class 3 had the lowest cognition at baseline for 2 domains. And we didn't see any differences in trajectory over time. They were all kind of declining at about the same rate. I think it's really important first work because we don't really know that much about this group. I mean, just their cognition in general, but definitely not about how they've experienced racism. And so I think the next step is to really kind of dig into how we would like to measure racism and go beyond just discrimination, because that kind of measures interpersonal racism, but it doesn't really discriminate between people who are experiencing unfair treatment and like systematic disadvantage, which we might be able to better measure using like measures of structural racism and better understanding like the de facto and de jure policies that actually impacted and shaped these participants' lives. So I think a lot more work into how we measure racism is really the next step.